che abbiamo ospitato quest'anno con questa sua mostra. Lui è fotografo e anche poeta. Nel passato in realtà era un montatore per la televisione, right? Sì.
Oh, before.
Before. Sì, in the past.
Mm-hmm.
E niente, insomma, leggerà in inglese alcune delle sue poesie dall'ultima raccolta di poesie del suo libro, Apophenia. How do you say?
Apophenia.
Apophenia. Good. Do you want me to translate maybe or not?
Scritto, è la capacità di trovare un nesso tra cose che non c'entrano niente.
Do you want to translate?
You talk.
Thank you everybody for coming. Old friends and new friends. I'm very happy that you've come. Thank you most of all to Serena and Nick for hosting this event. It makes me very happy. I've been coming to Venice for 20 years and I love it here. And I'm happy to have such good friends who would support me in my little project. And I'm happy to have these pictures shown here. I'm going to be reading from my chapbook, which is called Apophenia, which was published last year. Apophenia refers to the human tendency to perceive connections between random or unrelated things. In other words, how we all make up stories, how we connect the dots, even if the dots don't logically connect. Humans, we all want to have stories that make sense of our lives. So that's what the poems are about, and it's also what the photographs are about. So the photographs are blurry, indistinct. You know that they're human beings, that they're faces, but you don't necessarily know who they are or what they're doing. It's all up to the individual to speculate and to make up your own story about what these pictures mean and enjoy them for what they are. So that's kind of the whole background. So, like I said, I'm going to be reading from this book. Some of the poems in here, many of them actually refer to Venice. So I'm going to read a few of those, and then I'm going to read a few, well, maybe one or two that are more about New York City, which is where I live. And then, if we have time, I'm going to read a couple of newer things that I wrote that speak more to moment in history where we are today, which is, as everybody knows, not all that great. So, sorry. This first poem is called The Venetian. I traveled to you by air, by land, by water. The air viscid as honey with expectation. The land covered to death with the dust of dreams. The water that brought us together and kept us apart. We are separated by hundreds of years and the sinister habits of Europe. Separated by the distance from Vilna to Venice, from ghetto to palazzo, from my grandfather's grandfather, who saw Napoleon's army defeated and dying and returning to France, to yours, who welcomed the hero of Italy. In the traghetto, the oarsman told me to sit down, but you are permitted to stand. My dream is of you, Venice. You are as thin as paper, as serious as happiness. Take care. The next one is about how everybody's on Facebook, even people who've been dead for hundreds of years.
The title is
Bragadin,
Bragadin.
a figure from Venetian history. It's surprisingly easy to find the Facebook page of Marc Antonio Bragadin, Venetian commander of Cyprus, flayed alive in Famagusta for God and St. Mark in 1571. Pictures posted prove he's living it up baller style in the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. That's his reward for bravely bearing his abandonment to the enemy and how savagely he was used. Now he's living with Verb in Vegas, the pictures show. He's hired as a helper, a parasympathetic nurse, to supply supple transverse stimulation to his vagus nerve. Thanks to tincture of storax, he's recovered use of his larynx, so now he can relax and engage full-throatedly in intercourse of every sort, even with the mighty Turks. He's refilled his thorax with heart and lungs. He can bend again at the waist after all this time, and hear and see again, and he's just about to start training for a UFC undercard heavyweight bout. He's as busy as Cinderella, praying and moaning for his sins while dressing for the ball and dropping the broom. He's juggling his weight loss, his falsetto's teeth are in. He's ready to face up and load the boom. He's comfortable in his new skin. Then the next poem is called The Ferocious Tenth, which is kind of a Franz Liszt meets Lord Byron in Venice. The Ferocious Tenth. There is a popular future, even in this life, I'm convinced, that's as tantalizingly close and impractical and hunkered down as bloody Charlotte Russe or poor, obsolete Peaches Melton, too passé to survive, or like uncertain baked Alaska, unadapted to current conditions, half unfrozen and melting masochistically on the plate. Unadapted enough though one is to breaststroke like the unconditional poet who swam the Hellespont and icy Bering Strait, eyes dramaed shut, buoyed by water wings and inflated imaginings, and later crossed the lagoon from Molo to Lido, past San Lazaro, though that's a roundabout way to compensate for boundaries and defects one is doomed to beat one's uncrowned head and limping feet against. His heavenly quest for celebrity's boundless and limpid effects foundered on the same slippery rock, the very foundation we all stand upon, half in water and half on dry land. If you can stand to hear, I'd like you to listen to the ferocious 10th transcendental etude of Liszt, marked Allegro agitato molto. In truth, every work of Liszt is ferocious and glistens in its own super-emotional way. That's what makes them romantic. But the 10th really rocks. It fills your ears like Rush Hour or the crush on a jet lag. It's an instrument as useful as a machine for drawing water from wells we had thought were dry, and for resolving every complication that follows. In its attack on the theory of liberty that almost killed the poet, as soon as he was taught it, we see an inspiration only as clear as the shallow, murky lagoon, or like the water in a water balloon, falsely and insufficiently transparent. I'll read one more Venice poem. This is called Summer's Cold Air. Traveling from disbelieving disarray to uncertain despair, to sure knowledge of failure, happy to share coincidence, I circled your name in a magazine, or a name something like your name. I thought of us by the statue of Colleone at San Zanipolo, where the families of Il Libro d'Oro honored their Captain General, but also wronged him. They betrayed their condescension. We circled the monument, The cold air kept us awake. As we walked, I thanked you for bringing the coldness of your glamour into my life and a feeling of strangeness. Your mouth is filled with rose petals, your hands with the softest down. Your body is a sponge absorbing the waters of history. So this next one is about a melancholy feeling I felt often when I returned home after spending time in Italy, where it can be so difficult to adjust back to your normal life. It's called Nothing and Something. It's been a week since I ran out of milk. That's the sum total of all that's happened since I came home from Italy, where I saw the tenderest Bellini, mother and child, in the Brera, and also saw there, in the faces of men, in the shadows of the sunset at the disputation's edge, how solitude can be performed in plain view. It's easy to write about nothing. Nothing is what we know when the day is foggy and the apartment has no heat, and no trip to Italy, no matter how recent, can compensate. Not so easy to write about something. The mortadella I smuggled home, hidden in my carry-on, just so I had some skin in the game, and when hungry, another creature's viscera to pick at. And when hungry, another creature's viscera to pick at. One poem about New York. This is about the hurricane we had in 2012, Hurricane Sandy, which flooded great areas of New York, including close to my neighborhood. It's called A View of a Storm. The day before the rain began, another jazz martyr ascended, carrying his crystal tenor, and returned to water. Maybe it was Albert Eiler, the Holy Ghost. Then it rained forever until the Hudson burst its banks at 23rd Street, and the East River poured into Avenue C. I saw it from my window. The fishes, freed, walked on land. When 14th Street exploded, Manhattan cut in two, with darkness like a diminuendo descending. Wounded starlings fell from the sky, littering the ground from Breezy Point to Hellgate, but still unfilled. The empty spaces are unfilled. So I'm going to read a couple more recent things. From of course. I wrote this a little while ago. Serena, I mentioned it to you the other day about your grandfather, Arnold Schoenberg. I was thinking about the emigre community in Los Angeles that developed before World War II. And I was thinking about what else was happening in LA, Hollywood and the movie business. So the title of this poem is Arnold Schoenberg Meets King Kong, Los Angeles, 1933. As regards LA, home of several species that should have been extinct by now, guaranteed or your money back, including the artists and the giant apes, and Skull Island, where RKO hunted and made man a celebrity, hot-footing me from fully upright to stooping and returning to the sea, homeless, evolution reversed, uprooted, affectless, aftermath of man's desires and death from above. Unwriting the entire sequence, removing a by the handful, tiresome and trivial defects of style, a heap of unwriting, no rewriting, in a period of vagrancy. The unaddressed is no longer at home in our unmodulated mind, but remains unmarrowed and stateless and unconverted. Become more near to others, the farther from home we wander, transient rhythm, starting and stopping, always learning new languages and forgetting them soon after, no, sometime later. Consonant with tomorrow, far from empire's night, somehow sun and ocean are different now, but not new, nothing ever is. Wrestled over here, this way to indifferent transcontinental building, sun and ocean, so transfigured fakery soon becomes real abstraction to the point of substance, in a sunken room, in a house, with an absurdity of a swimming pool and a tennis court halfway up, no, all the way up the canyon. Fashion, clothed in their own infinite regression. This is an anti-confession, but let no one say my ineloquence is not a defense of our already forgotten experience of fire that erupted in the attic before we knew our home was burning, and the flood that came and carried the collapsing house out to sea. None of this may be very helpful since we could never afford to pay the rapidly increasing premium anyway. Family history doesn't fully rhyme with the official knowledge. Its grammar and syntax refuse consonants, and its delirium effect is a near opposite of the lesson we were taught when we were young. Have we really forgotten the foundry's fire and the needle workers' starvation wages for a dream of 3 kinds of cola, an entire aisle of sugary cereal, and your choice of self-medication, and enough almond milk to float a battleship? And messages sent and received in an instant, all covered by 7 coats of shiny paint? Pray to your gods and founders, ignore the evidence of their plunder, and don't look straight into the sun with the blindness of greedy, quixotic moths flown heedlessly into another flame. I can't tell you who to blame and what to know. All I know is that the house was in a city by a river bordering a plain, and all was swept away by the flood of unknowingness we all too eagerly overreach down the dead end of digression without ever reaching the hole at the tunnel's end, before it closes up with the ramifying wetness of rock crystal and arbitrary seeming refutations of the coming future, which will turn the better part inside out, along with poetry and art, and emerge whole from the rubble of right now. That's all I got. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jose.